Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Language Links. Welcome to anyone new. I do see a lot of new names, not so many faces this morning, but a lot of new names. So welcome to Language Links. As I was just saying, the topic for this morning is a monthly group. We meet on the first Thursday of every month, not during the summertime. And the topic for this morning is a little bit different because even though it doesn't involve specifically language building strategies, we are talking about something that involves a lot of language and how can we help our children understand their autism diagnosis. So we're gonna jump right in today. A couple of housekeeping things. If you are not registered with CARD and you would like to register, you can go to our website, which is on the bottom of this slide. Where you see the red arrow is where you can click to register. You can register online very easily. Where you see the green arrow is where you can sign up for our weekly email blast. And that is always chock full of information about events taking place either through CARD or community services as well. This is our contact information. If anyone's interested, you can take a screenshot or take a photo with your phone camera. And I want to bring this to your attention. This coming Saturday, April 3rd, we have our annual Issues in Autism conference. We have this on the first Saturday of every April in honor of Autism Acceptance Month. And our very own Dr. Michael Alessandri is going to be doing delivering a keynote. And then following Dr. Alessandri, we have a whole slew of phenomenal speakers. It is sure to be a treat. So I hope you guys can join us. It's free, and you can register at the link at the bottom of this flyer. Again, you can take a photo of this if you want. So I am going to be referring to information found in these two great books. These are two books that I referred to while compiling the information to deliver to you today. Very easy reads, very short. They're little, very short books, and very easy to understand. I would encourage you to look into those books. They can be purchased on Amazon. Also, before we start, I want to just mention, there's this concept of, do we refer to, person first? Do we refer to a person with person first language or identity first language? So do we say a person with autism or an autistic person? And it used to be that we would refer to individuals as a person with autism because they are a person first who happens to have autism. However, in the last number of years, there's really been a move to start referring to an individual as an autistic person. And people with autism have voiced that they prefer to be called an autistic person because that is their identity and it is who they are. And with pride, they want to be called an autistic person. We'll talk more about this concept as we go on, but I want to bring it to your attention so you understand why I may refer to a person with autism and an autistic person. So as we talk about our topic today, these are questions you may be asking. You may be saying to yourself, should I tell him? Why should I tell him? Does she need to know? Will it make a difference to her or him? Well, what happens if I don't tell him? And where do I start? So these are things we're going to be talking about today. And I want you to know that I don't have all the answers. No one has all the answers. And really, whatever you come away with today will be individualized for you, for your culture, religion, family dynamics, your child's age, your child's ability to comprehend their diagnosis. So there are so many different answers for all of you. And my job is to share the options with you, to bring to your attention this concept of sharing your child's diagnosis with him or her, child of any age, and to help you get to a place where you feel comfortable to do this or not. It depends on you. One thing that may be delaying this conversation between you and your child, or you and your family and your child, is that you want to do it the right way, right? We all, as parents, want to do things the right way. We want to deliver this information in a helpful, meaningful way. We have worries and concerns about this type of conversation, and we're worried about making mistakes. And if we make mistakes, or if we're worried about making mistakes, we may be, procrastinating, holding off, saying, no, I'll do it another time. And I really feel that we need to remind ourselves that we are human moms and dads. We will make mistakes. Our conversations, no matter how many times we rehearse this conversation in our head, it may not go as planned. We will say things that we might say afterwards, maybe I shouldn't have said that. And we might say something else to try to fix it. We're going to make lots of mistakes along the way. But even though we may feel that our mistake is a big one, or that we may have done something that wasn't totally right, we have to remember that the love our child feels coming from us and the acceptance for who our child is that comes from us towards our child will be even bigger than any mistakes we can make. And that's really important to remember as we go into this conversation. So love yourself, love your child, allow yourself to make mistakes because they're going to happen. And just know that your love and acceptance for your child will be even bigger than any mistake you can ever make. All right. Our job is, and this is with any children, whether they have a challenge or not, our job is to raise children who like themselves, who like the good and the not so good, who are generally happy. Of course, none of us are happy all the time, who are generally confident, and who, if they do have an autism diagnosis, who don't feel negative about their autism diagnosis. It's okay if they view it as a challenge, but we don't want them to feel down and out about their autism. We want them to generally be happy, to feel confident, and to accept their autism. I want you to remember, and we're going to refer to this process of sharing a diagnosis with the child as a journey. This is a journey because you're going to have a conversation with your child, but it's not a one-time deal. This is a conversation that's going to take place many, many times as your child grows, develops, ages. Our children at every stage of development will understand something, part of their diagnosis, part of what we talk about. And as they grow, we continuously have this conversation and they will understand more and more about themselves, just like we do, just, as we develop our self-identity. It's the same thing when we talk about autism. They'll continuously understand more and more about themselves. I want to take a minute and if you would, share in the chat box What are your worries about this topic? What are your worries about possibly sharing, with your child, uh, about their diagnosis? What are your worries about this conversation? What are your worries about their understanding about their diagnosis? Let's take a minute, and anyone who wants to share, please type it into the chat box. I do see there is a question about handouts. I put my email address towards the top of this chat string. So if you would just email me and say, can I have a copy of the handouts? I'd be glad to email it to you. So worries about sharing the diagnosis. Someone wrote they might use it as an excuse or crutch. Another concern, he may not understand, he's young, he's 10. Someone else wrote it might undermine his confidence, might make him feel badly about himself. Okay. It might hurt him. So a lot about self-confidence. We're worried that this could affect our child's self-confidence. I'll repost my email address in a minute. So another worry is, how do we do this the right way? So another concern is if we tell my child he has autism, he might believe that he's limited, that he can't do everything. Might change his happy spirit. He knows that his younger brother is on the spectrum, but autism looks different in his younger brother, and he might not understand how he could have autism as well. I understand that concern. So I'm worried that he will go around announcing all of his challenges or think that those challenges are the way it is and that's it, and they won't get better. Like, I'm not good at writing. And so just determining, oh, I have autism, I'm not good at this. Someone wrote, he already knows he's different. I just want him to see it as a positive thing. He's almost 7. My son is 7. He's very happy and confident with himself. I'm wondering if disclosing his diagnosis will cause him to lose confidence in himself. So, these are all such valid concerns. And we're going to be talking about how we can deliver this information in a way that it's not used as an excuse or crutch, and that we can help keep confidence that our children have, and we can help build confidence by helping our children see their strengths and their challenges and how to use their strengths to build on their challenges. So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to put my email address in the chat box again. So if anyone wants the handouts, you can email me. Thank you, everyone who shared their thoughts in our chat box. So we're going to continue, and we're going to discuss why we should consider telling our child about their diagnosis. We're going to share a suggested journey itinerary. So like, this is a journey, sharing the diagnosis with our child because it's ongoing. And it's an itinerary, kind of. What are the stops along the way? What do we do? And I'm going to share some resources with you as well. So, why should you consider telling your child about their diagnosis? For one, this information can help your child to develop a sense of self. Learning their diagnosis can give them a sense of belonging, where their place is in this world, It can help them understand where they fit in, who they fit in with, what they like, what they don't like, what's good for them, what's not good for them, what's easy, what's hard, where to go when things aren't so great. It can help them understand themselves. It can teach them that their brain does work differently. We know that their brain does work differently, not less, but differently. And so because their brain works differently, they might experience and interpret things differently. And that's why. It can help them understand their behavior and their challenges. And it does have the potential to build confidence and self-esteem and self-worth. Because when we have a sense of belonging and an understanding of who we are and what we're good at and what we're not so good at and what we can do about those things, it can build our self-worth. Sharing a diagnosis with the child the way we want to, the proper way, can avoid fear and incorrect conclusions. Because if our child senses that they could be different and no one's telling them why, and they have questions or they're wondering, they may come to their own conclusions. And sometimes those are the wrong conclusions. It can cause a lot of fear in our children when they come to the wrong conclusions. Understanding their diagnosis can be a relief if they understand really what's going on. Those incorrect conclusions that cause so much fear can be relieved. An understanding of a diagnosis can lead them to understand why they have struggles. We can help them see that their differences don't need to be seen as negatives. We can help them identify the things that they do really well, and we can reassure them, give them that relief that there's not something that is terribly wrong with them. And often that is that incorrect conclusion that individuals come to when they feel different, come to the wrong conclusion, and they feel like something is terribly wrong with them. In this book that I told you about, the author, Davida Hartman, quotes an individual who said, "I thought I was just fundamentally bad at everything before I got diagnosed." And this was someone who was diagnosed as an adult. "I thought I was a bad kind of different instead of just different." So it was a relief to this individual when he got a diagnosis. This was something that caught my eye recently. It was posted on Instagram, but found posted by an individual with autism, an adult with autism. And the author wrote, "Do you know what is harder than telling a child they are autistic? Not knowing you are autistic." Because it is such a relief for them to understand what their differences are, because it's not all bad. And if we can teach our children about themselves, we can help them see the positives about all of their characteristics and what they're made of. If we can give our children the information about their diagnosis, it could most likely be better than hearing it from someone else who may not do it the way we want it to be done. Sometimes other people, a peer, another adult who doesn't know that much about autism, they may not portray it in as positive a light as we would want. The information your child could get from someone else may be inaccurate. This could cause pain and more confusion. And if it comes from us, we can also establish for them who they can go to if they have questions. And that's also something that you need to decide. Who do you want your child to go to with questions? Maybe there's a very respected teacher you want them to go. Maybe they're working with an ABA therapist that you feel will have all the right answers for your child. Maybe you want to say, come to mom and dad. Maybe it's a mental health counselor. So that's something you need to think about as you begin this journey. Who are those people that you want your child to be able to feel safe going to with questions about autism to get additional information? If your child understands their diagnosis, it may increase their willingness to participate in the various interventions that you have in place for them. They can understand why they need some help to grow. If they don't understand why, they may really resent the time that they have to spend in various therapies. They'll be more likely to learn if they're willing to participate in therapies, and they'll understand why these therapies are relevant. Understanding their diagnosis can lead them to the tools that can help and support them. And if they can understand why they need the help and how these interventions are going to help them, we're also beginning to teach them to become self-advocates. And that's really, really, really important. And we're going to talk about that a bit later too. It's important for our children as they grow into adults, to know what they need to be successful. And their participation in their therapies and their willingness to do so will help develop those self-advocacy skills. Knowing their diagnosis can help our children recognize their niche, their place in the world. They can identify others who have autism. They can seek others who share similar interests. And that's something I often recommend to families when a parent calls me and wants to help their child make friends. My first question is, well, what are they interested in? Because we all gravitate towards other individuals who share interests, the same interests. So we want our children to understand their diagnosis and to find other individuals who may be similar to them and who may have similar interests. It also may help them to see others who have similar challenges. They can find mentors in the autism community, and some of the resources that I'm going to share with you at the end will be resource like Facebook resources where you can see posts from adults who will share and advise about their autism. We want our children to develop a sense of belonging in a place that is good for them, that feels like home for them. But without the full picture, our children are not going to recognize their niche. We need to give our children the full picture so they can get that sense of belonging. So when is the right time to do all of this? The general rule of thumb is earlier is better, because we can, from a young age, begin to help our children grow into their diagnosis, help them understand their diagnosis at their various levels of development. So you can begin to talk about autism from day one. And it doesn't matter how old they are. You can just begin to, generally share this information. You also may decide to wait until you feel that your child has the ability to understand. Nothing wrong with that. You can take cues from your child that tell you when the time is right. You may also be going through the diagnostic process and involve them in that process and share the diagnosis with them at that point. But it's important, again, to remember that this journey is ongoing and the conversation is going to be repeated many, many times as you evolve as a parent, as your child evolves as an individual with autism. And another thing to remember is it's never too late. No matter how old your child is as a child or an adult, it's never too late to share this diagnosis. I'm going to take a moment and just look at a couple of questions. Someone asked, do you think that if a person does not have an awareness that he or she has autism, it could become a person who does not have confidence in himself because he feels different or less capable than others? You know, I really feel, and this is reported from the community of autistic adults who have shared with us, that they have always felt a little bit different. They recognized, they may not have known how to verbalize it, but they always felt a little bit different. And so once they did know that they have diagnosed, that they did have autism, there was a sense of relief generally. Of course, every child is different. And again, I'm going to talk to you about what we're going to call this journey itinerary, how to tell your child about their diagnosis. And it's quite a positive process. So, you know, we spend a lot of time building the confidence, not talking only about what you can't do. So, you know, stay tuned. We're going to continue to talk about that. Someone also asked if the recording of this training will be available. Yes, it will, but I would ask you to email me. And once I get the link, I can email you the link so that you can watch it. Someone asked if there are any picture books or easy books to use to explain ASD to kids. Yes, I did find one and I'm going to share it with you soon. Unless it is a late diagnosis, I cannot see how you can involve them. So I think this post is about, you know, maybe this person who posted this in the chat box feels that perhaps the child is too young. And again, this is your personal journey. You have to decide when you are ready to share this diagnosis and when your child is ready. Some children are not ready. Some children are. And so let's continue talking about this process, and we can, you know, continue this dialogue as to who's ready and who's not. So someone posted that their child notices the differences in other people and may find them to be quite different. And so he may not identify the difference in himself because he sees other people with autism as being so different. That's a very valid concern. And if I were to explain it to my son who identified this in other people with autism, I would start with autism looks different in every single person. And there are different things about autism in every single person. So again, this has to be individualized. If you are coming into this conversation with a concern about labeling your child, I would encourage you to consider these things. Your child is more than their autism, of course. Autism is part of their personality. It's just one part. The diagnosis can actually avoid negative labeling. When people don't know that someone has autism, they may view some of their differences as being negative. And so having the diagnosis can help people understand your child. It also gives us the opportunity, having this, quote, label for our child, to show and model for others how we respect our child and how we embrace our child's autistic identity. In Davida Hartman's book, she says, autism is not a label, it is an identity. And so we need to start viewing autism as such. So this is the journey itinerary that we're going to talk about. And we're going to go through each of these items. So the first thing that we need to think about when we're talking about, should I tell my child? How am I going to tell my child? Where do I begin? You have to start within you. And you have to ask yourself, where am I in this journey? How do I feel about my child's diagnosis? We might feel relieved. We might feel devastated. We might be worried. We might be tired from the diagnosis, the therapies, everything, behaviors. It could be difficult. We might feel sad. We might feel that it's difficult to see our child struggle. We might feel pessimistic, overwhelmed. We might feel very alone. We might feel a sense of loss and grief, worried about giving my child a label, worried that others may have a lower expectation of my child. One day we might feel relieved. The next day we might feel very alone. Every day brings a different feeling. I might wish that people would stop giving me advice that I don't ask for. That's a very frustrating thing, right? We might feel judged because of our child's behavior. We might feel very determined. We might feel grateful that we finally have an answer as to why our child behaves a little bit differently, and that now we have a direction. We might feel a sense of commitment. We are going to get intervention and we are going to make strides. And we might feel a combination of all of the above. So the first step in this journey of telling our child about their diagnosis is understanding how we feel about their diagnosis. Do I accept their diagnosis? And am I ready to talk to my child about his or her autism? Can I do this in a positive way? If I cannot be positive and calm about my child's diagnosis, it is not the right time to start. And that's totally, totally fine. But you should be in a place where you're accepting your child's diagnosis and enough that you can explain it to them in a positive way. And if you can't yet, you will eventually. But if you can't, it's better to wait a little bit. If you cannot do it yourself and you want someone else to help you talk to your child in a positive way, you can ask for help to do that. You can ask a mental health counselor, a psychologist, a behavior therapist, a respected teacher to help you share this information with your child and be involved in this process. Eventually, you're going to get to a place where you can then ask yourself the question again, am I ready to talk to my child in a very positive way? Eventually, you'll be able to talk more and more to your child about this. But that's the first stop in this journey. Am I ready to do this myself, or do I need to ask someone else for help, or am I going to wait? Step 2 is be the air steward you want to see. So in the book, in Hartman's book, the little book of autism FAQs. The author talks about an air steward and being the air steward that you want to see on a flight. So if you're on a flight somewhere and there's an emergency, you recognize like something's going wrong on this flight. The air steward or the flight attendant, that's what we call them, that we want to see is the calm one who assures you everything's under control. It's okay. Please do this. I'm going to do this. And there's calmness. That's the flight attendant that you want to see. That's the parent that you want to display for your child. If the flight attendant is totally overwhelmed, running around, not able to focus on, the intervention and what to do first and totally, harried, you are going to feel not so calm. And we don't want your child to feel that way. So you need to be the flight attendant that you would want to see on a flight. You want to be that parent for your child. So that's step 2. Step 3 is you need to be able to provide the facts. And we're going to talk about which facts are incorrect to share. We'll talk about that in a minute. You want to share, and again, you have to use language that will help your child, but these are just the facts. What is autism? Autism involves difficulties with social communication and interaction. It involves restricted and repetitive interests and behaviors, rigidity in relation to routines and transitions, and very often sensory sensitivities. Those are the straight facts. That's what autism is. So you want to share with your child that people are born with autism, and there's no single cause of autism. Autism is quite common in the community. And you may even, depending on your child, share statistics. And you may share with them, talk about the different people that they know with autism. You want to talk about the fact that autism may look different in different people, that your younger brother has autism too, and his challenges, the things that are hard for him, are very different from what's hard for you. And so you can talk about how it looks very different in different people. Individuals with autism can have varied cognitive abilities, right? Girls with autism can present differently than boys. Many people with autism have sensory processing challenges. This is, and they're all different. What sensory experiences are challenging for one person are not for another person. And many people with autism experience high levels of anxiety. So these are important facts to share with our child. What we want to make sure they know is false is the following. People with autism are not affectionate. False. People with autism do not have empathy. That's false. People with autism do not want to have friends. False. Bad parenting causes autism. False. People with autism are just being difficult. False. And autism can be cured. False. The autism community, autistic adults are very vocal about this. They do not want to be cured. They want to be appreciated for who they are, accepted for who they are. So they do not believe that autism can be cured, and they very much resent the interventions that talk about curing autism. They don't feel that there is something that needs to be cured within them. So that's very important to accept. So how to tell your child about their ASD? You want to individualize how you help them understand. Every single one of you in this training is going to explain it differently for your child. You want to explain at your child's developmental level. Think about the language that you're going to use. What you're going to use with a 4-year-old is very different than a 14-year-old, which will be very different from a 24-year-old. Be honest, be truthful. Every child I have ever worked with, my own children as well, they know when we're being dishonest. They know. Be positive. It's very important to be positive. Acknowledge their strengths, acknowledge their challenges, and be objective and neutral. Try to avoid bringing in your emotion and your anxiety when you're talking about this explanation. I'm not saying that's easy, because when it comes to our own children, it's very difficult to tease out our own emotion, our own anxiety, our own worries about our children. But try your best to be as objective as possible when sharing this with your child, so that our positivity can be the strong point in the conversation. If you're talking to a child with less language, so this could be a young child, or it can be an individual who's older, but with less language, perhaps their language is challenged. You want to keep your language simple and concrete. I'm going to show you a book. You can use pictures, you can make your own pictures, but I did find this book and I can't see what you can see. Okay, can you see this? I don't know if it's backwards. Sometimes the screen comes, mirrored backwards, but this is a really cool book. And I have a picture of it at the end of this training. And this book, no, you can't see it. Someone said we can't see it. Okay, well, it is in the end, so I'm gonna point it out again at the end. But it has, it uses icons, symbols to talk about strengths, challenges, pieces of who they are. So it's a really neat resource. So again, you don't need this book to use these pictures to share the diagnosis. But you can use pictures to support language when explaining a diagnosis to a younger child with less language or an older child with less language. There are storybooks that you can use, and I have those at the end that I'll show you. There are movies, TV shows. For a young child, again, this would not be for a teenager with less language, but for a young child with less language, you could use something like Sesame Street's character, Julia, who over the last few years was introduced on Sesame Street. Julia has autism. So that is a helpful resource. You might find characters in certain books that your child can relate to. I'll show you again those books at the end. And also, I would encourage you, even if you think they don't understand, do it. Explain it to them. Try. Because very often our children understand more than they let on that they do. And even if they don't, after many times talking about it, information will settle in their brain and they'll begin to understand parts of it. And even if they don't understand, your actions around your accepting of who they are will demonstrate that they are accepted, that they're loved. And so it is important to still try to explain the diagnosis. For older children, children who are, have more language, you may want to use books. Again, I'm going to show you a bunch of resources at the end. There are great YouTube videos, TV shows, movies. I'm going to show you. You can create drawings, visuals. You can give them more details because they have more language. And remember that it's a journey. So the details you give them when they're 10 will be different than when they're 11 and 13 and 20. This understanding grows. It's a journey as they grow. You want to portray positivity. Of course, not everything about autism is positive, but there are so many positives, and we need to help our children identify that. So we want to help our child understand that autism does not change who they are. They are who they are. Autism is only part of them. They are not alone. For one, there's a whole autistic community out there that will welcome them. Two, they have loving family and friends all around them. They're not alone. We want to explain to them that their brain just works differently. There's nothing wrong with their brain, but it does work differently. And because their brain works differently, they experience the world differently. And different is not bad. It's not wrong. It's just different. And we have to help them understand that they can learn how to overcome many of the things that are hard for them. They might need help. And we have to tell them who is there to help them and how they're going to get help. Very often, the two biggest things our children need help with is language, anxiety. And again, for every child, it's going to be different. We want our children to know that we always have their back. I have your back. I didn't mean only when it's easy, all the time. I really like that because it's really important for all our children, autism or not, to know that we're always there to support them. Even if we don't like certain behaviors, even if our child is going through a really rough time, even if our child had what we call a meltdown, we are always there for our child. We have their back. It's really important for our children to know that. In this book, let me see what you can see here. Yeah. In this book, the author included some really cool worksheets. I'm not at liberty to share them in this PowerPoint lecture, but if you're interested in anything, email me and I can try to share certain things just with you individually. But there are different worksheets that you can use to talk to your child about their diagnosis. For one, there's a worksheet called Are We Similar or Different? And I don't know if you can see it at all there, but it's a worksheet where it encourages your child to think about a friend or family member that they're close to. And it says, what have you noticed that you have in common? What is different about each of you? And it just begins to help your child identify their personality traits, their individual traits. So you continue to write, how are we the same? How are we different? What is good about being similar to others? What is good about being different from others? There's another worksheet called What Are My Strengths and Challenges? And I don't know if you can see it, but there are two boxes and you fill in your child's strengths. This is with them. And you also fill in things I need help with. And then the goal is to make arrows between these two groups of traits, showing the things I need help with. You make arrows to the things that are strengths that can help them overcome those challenges. So you're helping them understand, okay, these are the things I'm not so great at, but I can use this strength to help me overcome this challenge. Another worksheet is what are my ingredients? And that basically just, you list just like a recipe ingredients, what are we made of? What are my characteristics? And then there's another worksheet called All About Me. Again, that's developing a self-identity, self-awareness, understanding who I am. So these are great worksheets. Another thing that this author writes about is using analogies to help our child understand their autism. And so this author talks about using steam engines versus diesels to describe autism. And there are really great things about steam engines, really great things about diesels, but they kind of work differently. They both have important jobs. They're different from each other. They do things differently, but they're still both great. And so can we make an analogy between the autistic brain versus the what we call neurotypical brain? And they can both do amazing things. They just do it differently. Same thing with a car versus a bus. A bus may have to go on a specific route, different from a car, but they both get to the same location. They just do it differently. And the same thing with a laptop versus a tablet. So again, this is using, things that our children can understand and recognize to help them make the analogy that their brain could be different from ours. And we can also, say our brain is different from theirs. We just do things differently. It doesn't mean it's bad or wrong. So I like these analogies. It can help some kids understand their autism. The next step is we have to talk about neurodiversity. We have to stop being so afraid of variety. And this is like, in my opinion, the theme of the world right now, right? We're living in this really cool, amazing time when neurodiversity is absolutely embraced and should be more embraced. We're moving towards that. We're moving in an era when we are trying to accept different people of different backgrounds, different cultures, different religions, different political beliefs, people who think differently. Like we have to embrace everyone, and autism is included. So in Hartman's book, she wrote, some differences are on the outside of the person, like different color hair or skin. Some differences are on the inside, sometimes in the brain. Autism is one of those differences. Let's add that to one of the differences that we have to embrace right now in our world. Let's embrace neurodiversity. We have to talk about strengths and challenges. So like I said, you can, make your own list. You can use different, graphic representations to help our children see their strengths, their challenges. We have to discuss how they can use their strengths to help support their challenges. And like I said, we can use that checklist, that worksheet in this book that I just shared with you. We also, at some point in our journey, want to introduce our child to other autistic people. There are many famous people with autism, and there are, quote, ordinary people in the community with autism, peers, family members. There are, interest clubs where they might find other individuals who have autism, people at school. So, it's really rare that we don't know an autistic person in our lives. Really, everyone does now. And it's important to help our child feel that sense of belonging by introducing them to others who are similar to them. In Hartman's book, she wrote, she asked an individual, in what ways has knowing about your autism helped you? And the answer was, it's helped me to understand why I see the world differently and to embrace my autistic strengths. It has also allowed me to meet a community of wonderful people just like me who have similar challenges and can give great advice to me. So I found that pretty powerful. Use available resources, which I'm going to show you in a few minutes, books, YouTube videos, TV shows, and movies. You can also create your own social narrative. We also call that a social story. And if you need help, you can contact your card clinician to help you with that. But we can always use social narratives to help explain autism as well. And then we cannot forget this step. Repeat. Start again. You are going to stop on all these stops in this journey over and over again, because your explanation and your child's understanding will grow as they grow. This journey can teach your child to be a self-advocate. If they can be taught to be a self-advocate, their diagnosis will be less likely an excuse. If they understand how to ask for what they need, and sometimes we do have to say, yeah, I know you have autism, but you can still do this. So we do have to tell them they can't use it as a crutch or an excuse, but we can also teach them what they should ask for to help them be successful. We need to begin to include our kids in IEP meetings from a very early age. Often kids are invited to their IEP meetings when they're in high school. This should be done in middle school and in elementary school, depending on your child. But it's really important for them to be part of their journey. And we need to begin to change this current, model of success. What's success? Who is successful? Again, we need to embrace diversity, neurodiversity. And so we need to help our children become self-advocates so that they can be successful in their own way. They don't need to fit into someone else's box of what success is defined as. They need to learn to self-advocate so that they can be successful in their own way. There will be bumps in the road. Expect it. It can happen, but they're bumps and you can overcome it. You may not know how your child will react. Your child may be upset about feeling different. But again, it's a journey, and that feeling will develop. It can develop into a more positive feeling. They may not understand the first 10 times you talk to them about it, but eventually they will understand more. They may not accept their diagnosis, and that's okay. If they don't accept, you just continue to reassure them, love them, give them as much support and information as they need. They may decide that they want their diagnosis to be confidential, and that should be respected. And then the other bump in the road is people have misinformation about autism. And so our child will hopefully become a self-advocate to help people understand, their autism. And this is an opportunity for us to model the right information and the right approach to our children and respecting our children's identity. These are just some things that you can share with others to help them understand your child's autism. I'm not going to get into this. What can you start doing right now, even before you decide if you're going to talk to your child about their autism? This is a really great first stop. Listen to autistic people. Listen to what they have to say. You can take a screenshot of this, or you can email me for the handouts with these links. These are some great places to go to listen to autistic people talk about their experiences. They give great advice. And here are some resources. So these are some books. The ASD and Me picture book is the one I just held up to show you. And these are storybooks for children about autism. Again, feel free to take a picture of these screens, or you can email me for the handouts. Here's some more books. This is a really good one. It's written for an autistic audience. So it's written from the point of view of, you have been diagnosed with autism and now you have purchased this book. It's a really nice resource. And at the end of every chapter, it has a list of links where you can find certain resources that the chapter discusses. And it talks about all different aspects of the diagnosis, how it looks different in different people, what it means for each individual. So there's some really nice information in there. These are some YouTube videos, excellent resources that describe autism. Sesame Street, a little clip with Julia, Rosie King, fascinating young woman. And she, if I am not mistaken, has a sibling, at least one sibling with autism, that manifests itself very differently in the sibling than it does in her. I think I'm thinking of the right person. And so that might be interesting for whoever asked the question in the chat box about that. This might be a good resource for you. Some more. Here are some TV shows. Now, again, these are not all appropriate for young children, but these are some TV shows that portray individuals with autism. Movies, again, not appropriate for all children. These are some famous people that sometimes children can identify with. Satoshi Tajiri is the creator of Pokemon. A lot of our children love Pokemon. He has autism. Greta Thunberg. So these are some individuals that you can bring to your child's attention. I mean, there are way more. Do a Google search, you'll find way more. So before we go on and we wrap it up, does anyone want to share what might be your, first stop? What might be the first thing you decide to do after this lecture? So we have one question from a professional. What to do when parents choose not to use the word autism around their child. As professionals, all we can do is share the information. They're the parent of their child. We need to respect that they're not ready to begin this journey yet. And so, you know, we have to maybe just approach, you know, the basics of accepting neurodiversity, everybody's different, and not using the word autism. And, you know, just sharing information with parents. Everyone comes with their own baggage, with their own experiences, and that's what makes them ready or not. And we have to let each family make that decision on their own. I don't see any chats about what your first stop on this journey is. That's totally fine. I'll take that as you're thinking about what your first stop on this journey is. Someone asked if I could share the slide with the red book again. I don't know if it was this one. Was it this one? Was this the red book? No. Was it this one? This one. There it is. Is that the one? Yeah, okay. So take a little picture of that. And feel free to contact me. This is my contact information with any questions. Let's see, we have one question here. I'm just going to stop the recording.